You're listening to Radio3Satan.com. Enjoy the show.
I would like, if I may, take you on a strange journey.
Welcome to 9sense. 9sense is a satanic perspective of our modern world, and I'm your host, Adam Campbell. It's great to have you. It is January 6th, and I've got a great show for you this week. This is the first episode of year 48 on Satanis. Wow. Third year of 9sense, 2013, common era. Good stuff happening, huh? Alright, well, welcome to the new year of 9sense. And you just heard the intro that was composed by Gyps Fulvus, and that's half of it, and the other half will be played at the very end of the show. And opening us there with the line, you heard the Josh Latta actually gave the intro line, and before that, it was the new Radio-Free Satan bumper my wife and I recorded together. So a little, loving sounds, good stuff. All right, so the show is as follows in The Devil's Advocate. I have the essay by Magus Peter H. Gilmore, I Am the Light and the Way. It's a really good essay, and it's in the Satanic Scriptures volume. Fantastic book. You have to pick it up if you haven't already. In An Infernal Informant in Steubenville, hundreds protest police social media response to alleged rape. And general details Pentagon tensions with Obama on Afghanistan. And in the Creature Feature, I talk with Josh Latta about his comics, his profession, and, a little humorous banter back and forth. There's a lot of fun. But before I dive into the show, some updates here. Cross. So the comic that I am putting out with Tribe Comics in their Tribe After Dark division, I wrote the story, and my friend Scott is doing the artwork for it, and he has come back with the final art for the interior pages. I had adjusted them very, very slightly. His art was really, really fantastic, and so I resubmitted them to the text man. He'll be putting in my words and, making sure everything's on the up and up and stuff as far as like that technical side goes. I just recently finished the logo for Cross that we're going to be using throughout this 4-edition or 4-episode set. And next, I've got to start working on the cover. So I have photos, for reference and everything. So that's going. I'd hoped to have it out at the new year or maybe even before the new year. But everything else that I've got going on, it just couldn't happen. So it is still in the works, and it's actually really close to completion, and we're already starting work on the second episode or issue or whatever you call it. But it's a good story, very adult, very sexy and kind of sort of, cartoony ways, and a lot of fun. So look forward to that, and you can bet your ass I'm going to be mentioning it as soon as it's ready. But another thing I wanted to mention, and I briefed you guys last week on this, RadioFreeSatan.com. That's right. It's time to pay the bills, people. Okay, so every year, RadioFreeSatan.com features podcasts with that sort of third side association, a little satanic perspective. And the shows have actually, or the network has actually been broadening. So it recently brought in Terror Transmission, which is amazing. Naughty Bits was brought in into the network, which was huge. And there's actually a few new shows that people just started up that are really good too. So you have a wide variety of content with RadioFreeSatan.com. And if you're enjoying it on a weekly or on a daily basis isn't reason enough for you to donate a little bit of Skrilla to help keep it going, to help keep it free, well then maybe a little bit of my own, sort of buffering can help. Okay, so you know that I released the Black House Blues album as a YouTube, but it's not available as an MP3 at all. Well, if you donate $10 to Radio Free Satan to help pay their bills and to sort of pay back what you're already getting for free, if you spend $10 donating, I'll give you the MP3 of that track. Now, I'm not selling this. It is our take on the Hymn of the Satanic Empire, written by Anton Szandor LaVey, and it is a rock blues version of it. It was a lot of fun, and it's free, so it's just an added bonus if you want to donate some money. $10 is not the limit, though. If you want to donate $15, I will give you the final MP3 of the 9sense Presents Satanists on Satanic Cinema sort of 4-episode set. Now, this episode is actually not going to be for sale at all. So, for a little bit of time, this is going to be your only way of getting it. This is the episode, The Brotherhood of Satan. I didn't even say that right. Featuring Magister Matt G. Paradise and Radio Free Satan's own Reverend Bill M. So both of these gentlemen have been with Radio Free Satan for a very long time. They've put really countless hours into their own shows and into your entertainment. And this is one more exercise of that. 9sense Presents Satanists on Satanic Cinema, The Brotherhood of Satan. It is a really great little riff track between the three of us. We had a lot of fun watching it. There is a little bit of movie audio bleed through, which is why I'm not ever going to be putting it up for sale. So if you want to get it, donate $15 to RadioFreeSatan.com. And if you donate $20, I'm going to give you the ebook version of my children's book, How Crow Got a Scareback. But if you donate $20 or more and you don't want that, you can choose any of the other rewards that I mentioned. Either the Black House Blues track, the Satanists on Satanic Cinema episode, or the ebook. It's your choice completely. And if you want to donate more than that, that's awesome, and we truly appreciate it. And Radio Free Satan is very grateful for it. This is all free content. All you have to do is donate a little bit to keep enjoying it free. So keep that in mind. I'm going to be doing this throughout the entirety of January. And I will need a little bit of proof here, okay? So don't just email me saying I donated, because I'm going to be checking. You can either email me, like a date, name, and email, and then I can double check that with Radio Free Satan, and then I will send you whatever reward you qualified for, or whatever reward you wanted if you paid $20 or more. And so, everyone wins. You get something, Radio Free Satan keeps going, and we all sort of scratch each other's backs, and in the end, share this sort of nice little satanic, three-way of sorts. I don't know. How about I shut up and just start the show, eh? So, each of these segments has a brand new recorded intro, a little bumper, so to speak. So, I hope you enjoy them, and at the end, let me know. Shoot me an email at info@9sensepodcast.com, or reach out in any of the social networking sites that we're a part of here, and let me know what you think of them. Better? Worse than the previous years? You know what? Your honest feedback is going to help me really create the next years that much better. So I always appreciate it, good or bad. Let's start the show, shall we? You are your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, and has nothing to do with the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. And you are the devil's advocate. I'm a Satanist. I'm an active member in the Church of Satan, but I do not speak for the Church of Satan. That is all. I am the light and the way. It was inevitable for this generation, to whom the cathode ray tube is their monolithic deity, the time had come for the birth of a savior. They all inhabit a tactically accepted Christian frame for reference, So they are the ones who have this need for being saved. And lo, the Virgin Mother of the desktop PC was visited by the Holy Spirit of online communication, and thus was delivered unto the herd the incarnation of their deity, the Internet. It is their God made flesh. They have forsaken worldly things for a virtual heaven here and now, but isolated from the abundance of the earth. That's the intro of Magus Peter H. Gilmore's I Am the Light and the Way, found in the Satanic Scriptures. This is a fantastic essay because it talks about a couple things, really, and it's, today, ever growing. So we can say when this was written, the internet was the catalyst for writing the essay, and we can see its contents portrayed now into social networking. The core message is exactly the same. There was a time when we would jest that television was the new God, rather than religion, because everyone just sort of sat in front of it and turned off. They just absorbed everything that was coming at them, and really what that meant was poor stories and advertisements. So you're constantly flooded with this, and you just sort of craved the banality of it. Reality TV shows really just sucked in the herd, and really just the non-thinkers. And this has sort of been pushed off a little bit, and as the internet is becoming more and more accessible throughout the entire world. So at one point, it was forums and chat rooms that would allow anyone to voice their opinions and be whomever they wanted to be, whatever sex they wanted to be, or as eloquent or garbled in their presentation. And it provided a way of people feeling like they were of substance when they were not. So for those of us who live in the real world and who relish the real world experience and accomplishment, this is sort of a sandbox for idiots. Now, every idiot has a purpose, and we Satanists, well, we know how to manipulate. That's kind of our thing. Lesser magic, So we understand that there is a time and a place, and it is very easy to be sucked in to not only the internet, but also just social media in general. But it's a dangerous thing as well, because the more you get sucked into it, the more you're pulled away from actually living. And that's where the Satanists really thrive. And that's where the Church of Satan has really expanded itself to be much more widely acknowledged for what it really is versus what people say it is, or say it should be, or say what they want it to be. This essay is speaking to the fact that there's nothing that we can do, nor should we want to divert the herd's consumption and utter masochistic pleasure of their minds being washed away by the internet and social networking. Let it happen. Who cares? That's really not us. And that actually can benefit us greatly, because not only does it allow us an avenue to manipulate people whom we may never come into contact with otherwise, it also gets them out of our way physically in the world around us so that we really can exercise our will uninterrupted in a lot of cases. And a lot of those cases would not have been possible had the internet not been around. So there certainly are some negative effects that the internet and social networking has brought about. But for us Satanists who know how to really capitalize on a situation, we understand that the internet isn't necessarily all that bad, because it benefits our will. As long, as with anything in life, this is sort of something that I say regardless of what I'm talking about. As long as you're going into it with your eyes open. So it's easy to get sucked in, Don't do it. Pull yourself back and realize that a good book, walking through a park, feeling the grass on your feet and the breeze across your face is a much more rewarding experience, and you exercising your will on your environment and meeting success on your own terms in the real physical world, which actually benefits those physical people that you have chosen to love and hold close, is much more important and much more demanding of your attention. So it's a great article, and there's actually a lot more that Magus Gilmore speaks to in that particular essay, but I think you should go pick up this book if you haven't already in your library, and you should absolutely read it for yourself, because it's a really great way of sort of turning this this idea of divine birth, creation of what the masses need as a god, and how the internet really fills that void perfectly for them. And he reflects a little bit as well on Anton LaVey's interpretation of artificial human companions being the new trend. And well, just go read it for yourself, because you're going to love it. I think that's going to be it for my review here. Let's go ahead and dive into the new intro for the Infernal Informant. Psst. Hey, come here. Psst. What? Huh? Me? Do I know you? Hey, you're religious, man, aren't you? No more than anyone else. Listen, I got a secret. It's been eating me up, and I gotta share it with someone. Get the fuck out of here, kid. I don't know you. No, listen, man. It's about you. It's about your life. You're about to have what alcoholics refer to as your moment of clarity. What are you talking about? Are you okay, son? Sins are indisposable to every society organized on an ecclesiastical basis. They are only reliable weapons of power. The priest lives upon sins. It's necessary to him that there be sinning. Who the fuck are you, kid? I'm your infernal informant. The first article is from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. In Steubenville, hundreds protest police. Social media response to alleged rape. Videos, allegations create firestorm of debate in small Ohio Valley town. And this was posted on the 6th by Marilyn Pitts. Steubenville. For more than 3 hours Saturday, chants, signs, and speeches filled the cold air outside the Jefferson County Courthouse as a crowd of 800 to 1,000 people demanded a more thorough investigation into the alleged rape of a 16-year-old West Virginia teenager by football players from this economically depressed Ohio Valley community. 2 members of the Steubenville High School football team, Trent Mays and Malik Richmond, both 16, have been charged with assaulting the young woman last summer and faced trials in February. The case has attracted national attention because of recent internet postings, including a 12-minute video of a former Steubenville student recounting the alleged sexual assault in graphic detail. Initially, online conversations focused on a series of alcohol-fueled parties attended August 11th by football players, in which the girl, who was inebriated and largely unresponsive, was carried from place to place, photographed, and assaulted, according to witnesses. Later, postings featured criticism of the teenager's behavior and the investigation that followed. I will not stand idly by and let a young girl's life be ruined because she believes everyone is apathetic, said Sable Foster, a 23-year-old Kent State University senior who spoke to the crowd using a bullhorn. Later, Miss Foster and the initial investigation by Steubenville police lacked thoroughness. We need the actual culprits. It takes more than 2 people to transport a body from party to party. There are some liquor stores that will sell to Big Red, Steubenville High School, football players. We don't want to see it tried in juvenile court. That's an adult crime. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine is leading the prosecution because the local prosecutor and judge recused themselves. Saturday's demonstration was organized by the online activist group known as Anonymous, which had taken a role in keeping national attention on the case. Members of the group have hacked into email accounts and websites of people connected to the alleged crime and have posted images and documents online, including a 12-minute video of the former student recounting the rape. Anonymous supporters wear the Guy Fawkes mask made popular in the film V for Vendetta, and many such masks were present at Saturday's demonstration. Really quick, let me sort of touch on this idea of trial as an adult. And this is my opinion. And there's, the trial is meant to demonstrate guilt and exercise judgment on these kids. But they are kids. They're 16. So what they did was what 16-year-olds would do if they were these kids. They're just sick, twisted kids doing sick, twisted things. Does that mean that they should be tried as adults because of how we in society see their actions? Well, I mean, if it was up to me, it would be lex talionis and we'd be cutting their dicks off. I mean, point blank, that's what I would do. Right? Our justice system won't do that. It's set up to protect, as much as possible, this sort of manufactured idea of humanity. Now, I'm not going to get into the argument of what these kids did was not humane in any way and they should be punished, because I can't defend that. I actually believe that they should be punished severely. But they are still kids, and if our system is set up that a certain age range is appropriate for sexual behavior, a certain age range is appropriate for service and for taking part in the greater social society, as in voting in the draft, well then we have to follow suit with the rest of those laws that are age specific, meaning that yes, these must be atrocious crimes that these kids committed or accused of committing and actually admitted to in this tape that was released to committing. Very like they didn't care at all what they did. I mean, this was just like a normal weekend for them. And certainly that was the idea you got if you heard those video snippets of the actual football students involved talking about it. But they are kids, and our law says that they must be tried as kids. Now, if they were adults, they would be tried as adults. That's just how it goes. So just because you have an emotional reaction to said situation or proceeding does not mean that we can just circumvent the law because you just feel like it. No matter what. So if it was a 10-year-old who shot his sister in the face, it's still a 10-year-old. And he needs to be tried as a 10-year-old would be tried. And the consequences need to fit the crime much more than our culture will allow it to, but because they don't, because we are forced to sort of dumb down everything, we have to keep in mind that we can't just tailor everything to the individual's wants. Because that means if we did, that it would be turned back on us at some point. And that's not something that I'm willing to do. So until lex talionis can be able to be enforceable, we need to respect the laws of the society we're in. Now, this is a stance Satanists all around the world have understood and clarified throughout every culture that we exist on this planet. We understand that we don't have to agree with the society's laws, but we have to respect them and live within them if we're going to be in that society. So, if we're in a society that says these are kids and they should be tried as kids, then we cannot let our emotional reaction to the incident change the law. Do that through legislation. Don't do that because you're pissed. More important, what is this idea that we all just get so upset over things happening to other people we've never met of? This isn't the first time that a rape has happened. And it's actually not the worst rape that's happened in the news recently. Check India out if you don't believe me. So why do we get so caught up? Are we that bored in our lives? Do we have nothing going on in our actual lives that we have to focus on other people's lives? Obviously the answer is yes, because, these stories come out and they're huge and people go to rallies about them. If you're not in that community, if you're not involved, you shouldn't give a damn about this. Like, it's a horrible thing that happens, but guess what? Horrible things happen every damn day. Literally. No hyperbole involved in that statement. Every day, horrible things happen. All you can do is focus on you and yours and moving and advancing in your life. Exercise control over what you have the power to exercise control over. Not over something way far away. And certainly don't change legislation on an emotional response. That's just ridiculous. That's probably the most offensive part of this entire thing. I mean, the rape is horrible and I never condone that, and they need to be punished for it. But that's what we have a system set up to do. As bullshit in a lot of cases as it ends up being. That's the one that we created, we crafted, so we're going to have to live with it. Alright, so Melissa Snyder of Wintersville, Ohio carried a placard that read, "Your rape crew is over," a reference to what some of the football team members are said to have called themselves. The rape crew. It was like a badge of honor they wore. Oh, these people. Why can't we just stop pretending to be this cultured society when we have shit like this happening? Okay? Now I'm going to go a little bit against what I just said about outrage. But mine is a broader context of our society and our view of law. Why can't we just accept that without real consequences, people will do stupid shit and horrible shit like this? I bet if you cut off one of the sexual organs of this rape crew, there wouldn't be any more rapes. Not in that town. Not by those football members. It wouldn't happen because there's real consequences. The reason why they keep doing it is because there aren't consequences. I blame the parents because the parents are phase one. If the parents let the kids get away with bullshit, then they're going to expect everyone to do it. And behavior like this, going along with this, if one of those football team members had an ounce of intestinal fortitude, if they cared at all about basic human respect, that's all I'm saying. Basic human respect. This would have been stopped. It would not have been allowed to take place. But they don't. And where do you learn basic human respect? From your parents. That's right. So I blame the parents. They'll never be blamed by anyone else, I'm sure, but it's their fault for raising shit-eating kids. And those shit-eating kids did shitty things. So, guess what? They're juveniles. That means they're still under your responsibility, parents. They're not adults. You are responsible. So, let's cut the kids' junk off and let's put the parents in prison and make sure that they never have kids again for sterilization, because obviously they have proven that they are incapable of raising citizens that would just not go around raping unconscious women. And here's the horrible thing about this. People are going to think that my solution is the horrible thing about that whole statement. That's the shocking part of that entire little diatribe. Oh, completely ignoring the fact that these guys raped an unconscious woman not only once, multiple times, and not only with themselves, but with objects, and took her from party to party doing it. No, that's not the shocking part of it. No, it's me expecting some sort of retribution that fits the crime, and to blame people that are actually responsible for the mental health of these children. Let's not look at the actual cause. Let's just, try them as adults and kill them and then continue breeding this sort of self-entitled, I'm above the rules of the rest of the world children. Gah! That's the most aggravating part, is that we completely ignore the actual cause of these things. Completely, whether it's a shooting at a school or whether it's a rape at a school. There are causes. Let's look at them. And stop pretending like legislation or the abandoning of legislation is going to be the ultimate band-aid that stops these from ever happening again. Let's start cutting off some junk. That's the quote for the day. How proud I am of this woman for standing up. It's not your fault, she said. James Lancaster, a father of 5 who lives in Steubenville, applauded the women. Like some demonstrators, he wore the mask but removed it before speaking. These are our daughters, our sisters, our wives. We need to teach our children right from wrong, said Mr. Lancaster, who works as a mental health coordinator for the mentally handicapped. You know what? I want to give him a hug because he just said what I did. You need to take responsibility and teach the kids what's right and what's wrong. Over and over, the protesters demanded the resignations of Reno Sacaccio, the Steubenville High School longtime football coach who was criticized after the incident for not disciplining other players who were at the party, and Jefferson County Sheriff Fred Abdallah, who they say has not taken enough responsibility in the investigation. Sheriff Abdullah watched the crowd before addressing it. He was dressing in uniform and wore a teal ribbon, a visual sign of support for rape victims. Nancy Snodgrass, 49, of nearby Fallonsby, West Virginia, said she would walk 3 miles to attend the demonstration, but hitched a ride with a friend. These women are so brave to step forward. We need to stand up for these women. Mrs. Snodgrass criticized Sheriff Abdullah. He's playing Pontius Pilate. He should be doing something about this, she added. Sheriff Abdullah called the women's stories heartbreaking. He told the protester that he advised 3rd and 4th graders to be wary of strangers and warned them to watch out for relatives too, because we've arrested fathers and grandfathers and stepfathers and boyfriends. What? What? He told the protesters that he advised 3rd and 4th graders to be wary of strangers and to watch their kid. What the fuck does that have to do with this case? What are they? Is there like rampant rape going on in West Virginia? Okay, is that a stupid question? It is West Virginia. But seriously, instead of addressing the issue as by means of placating the crowd that he's doing his job, he's saying he's warning 3rd and 4th graders to watch out for strangers and relatives because they're raping. What the fuck? After a demonstrator asked him when he first saw the 12-minute video, Sheriff Abdullah replied, "The first time I saw it was 3 days ago." "Liar, liar, pants on fire," the crowd shouted. Really? Really? That's the best you could come up with? And I love that too, because there's probably like people that are just shouting, "Liar!" And then they just repeat it, "Liar!" And then some dickhead in the back, "Pants on fire!" Too much? Too soon? It's just so dumb. And then they put it in there like it was all planned. Like, "Oh, liar, liar, pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire." Give me a fucking break. Sheriff Abdullah responded to reports' queries as he left the courthouse steps. He said the boy who narrated the 12-minute video wasn't there when the alleged rape happened. He made the video based on what people told him, Sheriff Abdullah said. 3 individuals witnessed the sexual contact. Earlier in the day, Steubenville City Manager Kathy Davidson spoke at a news conference to unveil a website called SteubenvilleFacts.org, sponsored by the city and its police department to disseminate the most accurate information about the case. During Saturday's briefing, Ms. Davidson did her best to put distance between the city's 7-member council and local authorities. The Jefferson County prosecutor and sheriff she said, are elected by county residents. The city has no authority over the schools or the prosecutor. Mr. Davidson said, the city does not run the school or the football program. Steubenville Police Chief William McCafferty said police obtained a 12-minute video narrated by a male teenager in August. He said some folks received harassing phone calls and one man had to turn off his phone. Brian Yance, a 21-year-old security guard who grew up here, and his aunt Michelle Thomas were among the first to arrive to the rally and came with a pile of colorful signs. No football players should think that they can do whatever they want and get away with it, Mr. Yance said. Mr. Yance, who played left tackle on the football team and graduated from Steubenville High School in 2009, said he left the team in his sophomore year after missing several practices because his grandfather, who later died, was gravely ill. Coach Sacaccio, Mr. Yance said, thinks football is above everything else, and it's not. See, and we're going to be focusing on football for this story. We're going to be focusing on how the local community appreciates football more than any other sport or more than its school, and so they give these football players a wider berth or a longer yardstick to judge their actions by, all the while ignoring the root causes. Every single adult should be exercising their will over juveniles. Let me clarify that a little bit. If you see someone stealing in a store, you call them out on it. If you know them, you call them out on it. Because you're a responsible citizen in an operating society. Now, not every situation is the same, and there may be reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. That's fine. But if you're an adult in a situation where a minor is doing something that they're not supposed to do, you stop the bad behavior. And it's not just something illegal. I mean, if they're speaking incorrectly, if they're acting out, we feel like we can't actually just say, you're acting like an asshole, stop. Like, we can't correct anyone because they're going to cry to their parents and their parents are going to be all righteously indignant. How dare you talk to my children? My children are the best. They had 17 participations awards in the football team. They are the greatest. We are encouraging this type of behavior, and all it takes is just the tiniest amount of intestinal fortitude to stand up and say, no, that behavior is not okay. You don't have to be an adult to do it. But if you're an adult witnessing it, you do. So this football coach needs to exercise his view of a cultured society a little bit more. Apparently he doesn't have any view of a cultured society or what that even means as far as behavior is concerned. But if he did, that's what he should be doing. And every single adult, from the counselors to the teachers to the principal to the drive-in owner, the cafe clerk, everyone, if you see something happening that's not appropriate, correct that behavior. Now, it could be someone throwing trash on the ground or throwing a cigarette butt on the ground, or it could be someone raping someone at a party with a whole bunch of other people in it. Do something! Don't just stand there. Correct the behavior, because guess what? I bet you anything that girl would have appreciated it. And you probably would have gotten your ass kicked by the football players, but it may have stopped them from raping this poor girl. Just, why can't we expect people to be corrected for their poor behavior? Why is that a bad thing? Drives me crazy. Anyway, that's how I see it. And obviously, I don't go around freaking correcting everyone either, but I guarantee you, if I saw some kids raping someone, I would go out of my way to stop it. I've interjected myself in situations far less aggressive than that. That's not very convincing, actually, that I think of it. Okay, let's talk about the next article because I've been ranting on this for a long time here. And this is actually the New York Times. General details Pentagon tensions with Obama on Afghanistan. And this is by Michael R. Gordon, posted on the January 5th. In a memoir, General Stanley A. McChrystal, the former American commander in Afghanistan, writes that tensions between the White House and the Pentagon were evident in the Obama administration from its opening months in office. The beginning of President Obama's first term saw the emergence of an unfortunate deficit of trust between the White House and the Department of Defense, largely arising from the decision-making process on Afghanistan. General McChrystal writes, the effects were costly. The book by General McChrystal, who was fired from his post in 2010 after an article in Rolling Stone quoted him and his staff making dismissive comments about the White House, is likely to disappoint readers who are looking for a vivid blow-by-blow account of infighting within the administration. The book, titled My Share of the Task, a Memoir, does not provide an account of the White House meeting at which Mr. Obama accepted the general's resignation. General McChrystal's tone toward Mr. Obama is respectful, and he notes that his wife, Annie, joined the crowd at Mr. Obama's inauguration. The book is to be released on Monday. An advanced copy of the book provides revealing glimpses of the friction over military planning and comes as Mr. Obama is weighing and perhaps preparing to overrule the troop request that has been presented by the current American commander in Afghanistan, General John R. Allen. The account, is all the more noteworthy since General McChrystal, who retired from the Army, remains a respected voice within the military and teaches a course on leadership at Yale. According to the book, the tensions began before General McChrystal took command in Kabul, Afghanistan, and were set off by a request from his predecessor, General David D. McKiernan, for 30,000 additional troops at the end of the Bush administration. Instead of approving the entire request, in February 2009, Mr. Obama decided that 17,000 would be sent. Adding that decisions on additional deployments would be based on further analysis. From the White House's perspective, General McChrystal writes, this particular decision was logical. After less than a month, the president has increased American forces in Afghanistan by 50%, though Mr. Obama had cast the conflict in Afghanistan as a war of necessity. As a candidate, he was nonetheless wary about a prolonged American military involvement there. But the Pentagon pressed for an additional 4,000 troops, fearing that there was little time to reverse the Taliban's gains before the August elections in Afghanistan. The military felt a sense of urgency, seeing little remaining time if any forces were to reach Afghanistan in time to improve security in advance of the elections, he wrote. The White House later approved the 4,000 troops, but the disputed point to a deeper clash of cultures over the use of force that continued after General McChrystal took command. Military leaders, many of whom were students of counterinsurgency, recognized the dangers of an incremental escalation, and the historical lessons that trailing an insurgency typically condemned counterinsurgents to failure, he writes. In May 2009, soon before he assumed command in Kabul, General McChrystal had a short but cordial meeting with Mr. Obama at which the president offered no specific guidance, he notes. The next month, General McChrystal was surprised when James L. Jones, Mr. Obama's first national security advisor, told him that the Obama administration would not consider sending more forces until the effect of arriving units could be fully evaluated. That contradicted the guidance that General McChrystal had received from Defense Secretary Robert M. Gates, that he should submit an assessment in August of the additional forces that might be required, he writes. At an October 8, 2009 video conference with Mr. Obama's National Security Council, differences again emerged when General McChrystal outlined his goals: defeat the Taliban, secure the population. That prompted a challenge. That prompted a challenge by a Washington-based official, whom General McChrystal does not name, that the goal of defeating the Taliban seemed too ambitious and that the command in Kabul should settle instead for an effort to degrade the Taliban. At the next video conference, General McChrystal presented a slide showing that his objectives have been derived from Mr. Obama's own speeches and a White House strategy review. But it was clear to me that the mission itself was now on the table for review and adjustment, he wrote. After General McChrystal determined that at least 40,000 additional forces were needed to reverse the deteriorating situation in Afghanistan, Mr. Obama provided 30,000 and said he would ask allied nations to contribute the rest. General McChrystal acknowledges that he had concerns that Mr. Obama's decisions to announce a date for beginning the withdrawal for the additional surge forces might embolden the Taliban, but the general writes he did not challenge that decision. If I felt like the decision to set a withdrawal date would have been fatal to the success of our mission, I'd have said so, he writes. General McChrystal has little to say about the episode that led to the article in Rolling Stone. He writes that the comments about his team were unacceptable, but adds that he was surprised by the tone of the article, which he'd expected would show the camaraderie amongst the American, British, French, and Afghan officers. As the controversy over the article grew, General McChrystal did not seek advice before offering his resignation. The book does not say if he was disappointed when Mr. Obama accepted it at a brief White House meeting. Returning to his quarters at Fort McNair after the White House meeting, he broke the news to his wife. I told her that our life in the Army was over. This is interesting to me because we hear a lot of complaining about adding any additional forces into Afghanistan and how really the national mantra has been to pull out of all of the wars and get back to what makes us great, and that's building up our infrastructure at home and focusing on science, technology, and innovation. That's how we got to where we are right now. That's how we're going to move forward as a major world power. So the American people are screaming and yelling that they want to get out of these wars. And with the opposite hand, they're shaking their fists at the Obama administration for not doing what the generals are asking them to do. And ironically, that's put more forces in to Afghanistan. So they're allowed to berate and assault the administration on both sides of the exact same argument. He decides to put in troops. How dare he? He doesn't put in enough troops. How dare he? He can't win. Okay, well, that being said, let's talk about it from an administrative position. As commander-in-chief, like it or not, he sets the mission. Now, it's obvious that there was a misunderstanding between General McChrystal and Mr. Obama with what the mission is. General McChrystal thought it was to defeat the Taliban. Mr. Obama thought it was to find and kill bin Laden and sort of deteriorate the Taliban's influence. So obviously, those two require quite different methods of assault. And so they were just sort of going along. And this just tells you that the lack of effective communication in our government, certainly in our military. It should be crystal clear. But if there's that big of a misunderstanding over what the basic mission is, what smaller things are falling off the radar? Okay, so, General McChrystal was not wrong for asking what he did and for expecting it to be followed because that's his position. And he was operating under the understanding that he was trying to defeat the Taliban. And from the other perspective, Mr. Obama was absolutely right because he was tiptoeing a fine line between what his generals in the field wanted based on the mission that he thought was being followed and what the people he is serving want, the American public. That's got to be the most difficult, in my opinion, of all of this. Not the most dangerous, the most difficult. I think that's an important distinction. So, it's easy to point fingers at the administration, say, Obama, how dare you? And it's easy to point fingers at the military saying, you're not showing respect to your commander-in-chief and you're not following the mission that he set out for you. But there's always a third side to these. And we have to take a step back from it and do not allow political banter or administrative banter to confuse you from that. And that is, communication is not there. Not where it needs to be. And this actually may have been corrected since then, and it seems as if it has been. But we as citizens need to stop just screaming at the top of our lungs on partisan issues like this. Well, on issues that are used for partisan cause like this. And realize that maybe we don't have the bird's eye view of the situation. Maybe Billy Bob, with his mustard-stained wife beater, doesn't have the complete effective knowledge that maybe a general or a president has. And so maybe their opinion doesn't mean shit. We put these people in positions of authority because they're better than, presumably, us in these positions. Otherwise, if you're better at it, you should be doing it. Why let someone run something that you know they're doing wrong if you can actually do it better. And if you can't, then shut the fuck up. Move aside and let them do their job. In this case, General McChrystal resigned. I don't know if he needed to, but he felt like he needed to. And politically, it was probably a good thing. So he resigned, and the mission moved forward, as it always does. But it's the nitpicking when you know nothing about the situation on the ground, and when you know nothing about the situation from the air, meaning what the overall mission is supposed to be. You just gotta shut up. Just stop. And stop trying to use that argument, that uneducated argument, for cause of who you should vote for or who you shouldn't vote for, or how it's a tyranny or how it's not a tyranny in this country. Focus on what you can affect in your own life. That, and I said in the last article, you keep your eyes in the lane, okay? Stay in your lane. You have influence over X. Worry about X. That's what I'm saying. Alright, so that's going to do it for the Infernal Informant. And let's go ahead and jump on into Creature Feature. Brand new intro here as well. Hope you enjoy it. What's this show called? What do you mean, what is it called? You know, what's the name of the show? What, like the title? What's the title of the show? Is that what you're asking me? Yeah, what's the big deal? What's the title of the show? Look, it should be good enough for you and for any of you other Generation Y's or X's or W's or Z's or whatever fancy letter you're sitting on today to realize that it's not about what the title is. It's not about... When I was your kid, there's only one thing that we had growing up. When we wanted to watch a show, we just turned on the telly Saturday mornings, and you know what we got? Do you have any idea what we got? No, I have no idea. Why are you freaking out? Every single Saturday. And we didn't know what shows were, what titles were, or what. We had no choices on what to watch. We were stuck with the Creature Feature. And so are you. Welcome to another Creature Feature. Today I'm being joined by Josh Latta, and we're going to be talking to him about Latta Land and his wildly popular comic Rashy Rabbit, and some of the little more innovative things he started, like avatars. Josh, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me, man. We've sort of been near missing each other in the chatting department for quite some time.
Well, I can't figure out Skype. I'm kind of a Luddite. I don't know how to do anything. I mean, I pretty much just have a can with a long string on it to communicate with people.
Nice. You get that residual flavor, or at least aroma of the SpaghettiOs, so, it's got to be a good way to do it.
Oh, yeah, I know that flavor all too well. I was a picky eater growing up, so when my parents actually made spaghetti, I would have to have SpaghettiOs because I just could not handle the ethnic.
Nice. All right, well, hey, let's talk a little bit about you, and then we're going to dive into the comic side of things.
Sure.
And maybe we can just sort of start at the beginning. How was puberty for you?
Sorry? Oh, no, what a bad beginning.
No, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I now live in Baltimore, Maryland, but I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and I basically grew up on cartoons, a steady diet of cartoons and comic books. And for whatever reason, I was just deeper into it than the rest of my friends. So I guess if you can be born to do something like help people, then you certainly can be born to cartoon. And that's basically what I do when I'm most passionate about. I like a few other things here and there, but yeah, absolutely. Cartooning is my number one interest.
Wow. So, I mean, how young were you when it sort of hit you?
Pretty much right away. According to my parents, I was drawing at 2. And yeah, so I basically, whenever I could hold a pencil, I would, and try and replicate cartoon characters. And
your parents were supportive of this, I presume?
Yeah, they definitely were. I know a lot of artists, and they tell stories like, oh, my parents, they had great adversity when it comes to doing comics, but nah, that wasn't my case. I'm maladjusted for other reasons, but my parents were great.
Nice. So, I mean, did they encourage you throughout your whole life, as growing up as a young man, or did they ever get to a point where you sort of faced that, put down the cartoons? And I mean, what did your parents do?
My parents, my mom always kind of worked odd jobs, mostly in nursing, and my dad worked for the state for years, but they just told me to do what makes me happy, and they were always really encouraging. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You're a parent, so I guess one thing to watch out for, and it's one of those terrible things because everything your kid does is great and awesome, but if you encourage a kid too much, it can really set them up for disappointment later in life. And that was something I encountered in junior high. Once I left the confines and the comfort of elementary school, I realized, wait, I'm not the best anymore. So I started having to work hard at drawing.
Yeah, I thought I was the wonderful, most amazing artist ever.
Oh yeah, and still to this day, if I don't get that kind of recognition, it drives me up the wall. I need that attention.
It's got to be horrible.
Shameful.
Horrible and challenging for your sex life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Constant encouragement. No, you're doing great. You're huge. It's.
Oh yeah, I insist upon that.
I gotta say, I mean, for me, a steady stream of beatings and timeouts and crawl spaces helps me develop my children in a very healthy way, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, they'll do fine.
They'll be captains of industry.
Yeah.
No, I've always wondered about that, about constant reassurance, and we did sort of go through this period as a culture. And I guess the majority of people are still in this mode, though I think it's phasing out, of where you are supposed to, just hold your kids aloft in the air and just say, you are the greatest at whatever you do, and participation is enough. And I don't know. But as far as comics and cartoons go, I mean, you are really good at it. And so, obviously that's why I wanted to have you on and talk to you about it, because of your success and stuff. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. During your advancement as an artist, as you grew, did you always have your eye on that comic angle, or did you ever think that maybe I could develop this into a more illustrative, less comic, and did you ever try to do anything like that with your art?
I guess I kind of flirted with trying to draw more realistic in my late teens, early 20s, but yes, pretty much I was a cartoonist from birth, and that's what I like to draw, and that's what I'm interested in, and that's what I do best. So, comics were always the end goal. Animation, too. I guess when I was really young, I just wanted to be part of that process, whether it was comic books or animation, just part of it. I wanted to be that cog in the machine at the Disney factory.
Yeah.
But the older I got, the more I realized I'm not really cut out to sit in cubicles. I had to invent my own way. I can't just work for a company.
Even if it was someone like Disney?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, can you imagine how oppressive of a job that would be? Plus, their heyday is long, long over.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in traditional, yeah, I guess so. I mean, Pixar has really sort of reinvigorated them, I think.
Oh yeah, sure.
But so did you ever consider? Hold on. Let me sort of back this up a little bit. What were some of your early influences? I mean, obviously Disney was one.
Yes, Disney was probably the biggest and most influential because it was just such a big part of all our cultures and childhood, and for whatever reason, it really stuck. But when it comes to Disney in particular, there was a cartoonist named Carl Barks who did these Donald Duck comic books that had a really big impact on me. So Donald Duck comic books, particularly Carl Barks, Looney Tune cartoons, Mad Magazine was a really big thing for me.
Did you ever take shit growing up in middle school and high school about cartoons and cartooning?
A little bit. It's not what it is today. I couldn't imagine walking around in a T-shirt that said, like, I don't know, that had Iron Man on it in junior high without getting your fair share of shit. But I think nowadays you can wear an Iron Man shirt and no one's going to have a problem with it. But, I think the cartooning comics interest I had was the least of my bully's concerns. I was just really, really shy and timid when I was that age. It goes to show it's something you can grow out of, especially if you want to get laid. So if that's my message to your listeners. If you want to get laid, you got to get over the shyness.
It's a very good message. Okay, well, let's sort of transition here to your Rashy Rabbit. Where did this come from?
I just had this really, really bad date once. It was just once in my life. No, it was just first date. I went out with this girl that I just barely knew, and I went to her parents' house, and they were out of town. And it went so disastrously, and really no fault of my own. Well, I'm sure there's fault of my own, but she was just insane, and the more she drank, the more crazy she'd get. And as soon as I left, I was like, wow, that'd make a really good one-room play. And then I thought, well, I can draw it as a comic. So as soon as it happened, I started kind of drawing the comic version of what happened, and I could never finish it. I could never pick it back up, and So I guess I had an epiphany later, and I was thinking that perhaps I should draw it as funny animals so I can really be honest and really draw what I was feeling and admit to some of the really scummy things that happened that night. When you're drawing yourself, you're going to be a little guarded, but once I started drawing a rabbit stand-in, I wasn't guarded at all. So after the first one, I just had more and more ideas. So it just kind of was born out of a fluke. If I really thought it through, I probably wouldn't have named him Rashi.
Was that because of any physical problems at the time?
Yeah, that was absolutely an STD joke.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it started off as an autobio story, and each issue got a little more broad and cartoony, which is probably what I always really wanted to do, but it takes some chops to pull off a really broad, cartoony story, believe it or not.
Yeah. Presumably you're creating the stories for these comics as well, correct?
Oh, yeah, I do all my own writing.
So have you ever considered yourself as a writer, separate from the drawing?
No, not really. I do like to write for myself, and I like to write for my website, but all in all, writing is kind of difficult for me because, I guess I mentioned it. Someone mentioned it, the ghost of Christmas past, I don't know, but I grew up in Atlanta, so I went to public school in Atlanta, and it wasn't very good, so somehow I missed out on the spelling and punctuation, and so writing is always kind of embarrassing to me because there's always going to be a lot of misspelled words, a lot of bad punctuation mistakes. So thankfully I have people to double check, particularly Erin. She's definitely got the patience for double checking everything I write.
Nice.
So I've had comics go to print with misspelled words, and that is humiliating.
Just to tie it in together a little bit more for the audience, Erin, the hostess of Down to the Crossroads, you've actually done a lot of the artwork, or all of the artwork, for the Facebook page and for the promos out there. So just sort of, connecting the dots there for people. So what year are we talking that you started the whole Rashi Rabbit concept?
Oh, it was probably 2003 or something around there.
So, before that, did you ever consider doing your own comic entirely, or were you thinking that maybe you would, connect with someone else and sort of collaborate?
Well, I've been doing comics for a long time, and I have collaborated with people, and sometimes it's fun, but all in all, I prefer not to, because no matter what, people will give you these really word-heavy scripts. You take one look at it, and you think, well, this paragraph right here would take 10 pages to visually describe, so it always kind of come back to, I guess, I don't know. I felt more comfortable, like I knew what I wanted to do and what I was comfortable with drawing. But I guess I wouldn't mind to collaborate to this day. But all in all, I definitely think I do my best work alone, and that's what I'm going to probably continue doing.
Wow. Yeah, see, that's like sort of the exact opposite. Like in my field, graphic design, I think collaboration ends up to being, amongst creatives, ends up being a stronger design. But for you, it's the exact opposite. That's interesting.
Among creators is one thing, but probably in graphic design, you have a bunch of just regular clients telling you what they want.
Yeah, bigger logo. It's always bigger.
Yeah. Well, if they show you a logo and say, hey, make it look kind of like this, no, make it exactly like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they want.
Okay, so, Rashi Rabbit you've had around for quite some time. What are some of, where can people look to learn more about Rashi Rabbit, or maybe to pick up one of the comics featuring?
Lattaland.com would probably be the best place to find it. And you can even read it for free if you don't really feel like committing to it. But, hey, it's kind of cool just to have the actual printed comic. I'm still of that era when the book still matters.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think that's going to be affecting you as an artist, as a comic creator in the coming years, as everything seems to be pushing more and more digital?
I guess I got to go in that direction. I really don't make much money, if any, on comics, so it's not really the money issue. I just want a lot of people to see it, and I guess if everyone's reading comics online, then who am I not to put them online?
Yeah, and it's kind of tough because at one level you want to present it in the fashion that you feel is going to be the best for your message and for the experience and everything. On the other hand, if you want people to actually look at it, then sometimes you have to sort of give on some of those presentation quirks.
Yeah, and I feel like it's real when it's finally a printed book. That's when I'm like, wow, this is really a comic book.
Yeah, that's cool. When did you do your first comic book, like official comic book of Rashi Rabbit? When did that come out?
For Rashi, Well, the first one was called Anxiety, Sleep Problem, and Depression. And no one could ever remember that title, but yeah, because it was based on
An
that
upbeat
like
message.
crazy. Yeah, can you believe it? No one that wouldn't stick. People kept calling it that rabbit book. So by the third issue, I switched over to just calling it Rashy Rabbit. But I'm trying to remember what year it was. I think that was 2003. That's
Okay.
just my guess.
Yeah. I mean, you had mentioned you'd collaborated before that, and you've done comics before that. Do you want to drop any names on what you were working on before?
Yeah, let me see. My very first comic strip was called Suicide Funnies, and it was obviously a late teen, early 20s kind of angry strip that was, I don't know, kind of South Parky, as shameful as that is to admit now.
Nice.
And, I was really just trying to learn the craft. I didn't quite know how to draw a comic, or anything really. I could draw, like, okay cartoon characters at the time. When I look back, of course, I cringe, but when you're drawing comics, you realize, wow, I really don't know how to draw things like doorknobs. I don't know how to draw a toaster. I don't know how to draw, a decent lamp. And once you start drawing comics, you find that you're drawing absolutely everything. So it's if you're interested in becoming better as an artist, I mean, comics are the way to go because you'll be covering every subject, every item.
Yeah, no matter how mundane, yeah.
Yeah, now I kind of enjoy drawing lamps. I kind of enjoy the strange little details in the background. I mean, if you look at Rashy Rabbit or most of my art, I do love detail.
Yeah. Well, drawing comics isn't the only thing that you do, right? I mean, you do a lot of freelance work as well. What are some of the clients that you've done recently?
I did a poster for this band White Denim, which was fun because that's Aaron's favorite rock band. So it was always nice to be able to do a job to impress your girlfriend.
Yeah.
I did something for Turner really recently, TBS's website. They had a new show called Wedding Band or something like that. Not that I want to plug that show. I've never seen it. What the fuck. But I did a game for them where I designed visually all these song titles, artists, bands, things like that. Just as pictographs almost. So I'm pretty well suited for stuff like that. But those were two of my more interesting clients recently. But all in all, I do a lot of commissions. Regular people can always contact me, and I'll draw them whatever they want to be whatever they want me to draw.
The little people.
Yeah, the little people.
Usually I try to shake them off my boot. No, I mean, and it's interesting because as far as I don't know, do you consider yourself a comic or an illustrator when it comes to freelance work? I mean, how do you promote yourself?
Well, I guess for freelance, the comics stuff kind of impresses people a little bit, but all in all, it's just an illustration job for me.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think it's the comic background that makes me appealing because I have a cartoonier style, and also pretty much all the freelance work I get nowadays has some humor tie to it, which is great because I feel like I'm just well suited for that. That's what I like. I like funny things. I like funny movies. I mean, humor gets such a bad rap. It's not taken serious. Well, that's not stupid. Humor's not taken seriously. But, it's easy to bum people out, and it's really hard to make people laugh, and you could look stupid in the process. So it's a brave thing to do, and not patting my own back saying, I'm brave for doing humor, but I'm just well suited for it. I like jokes. I like funny.
Nice. Do you think that, I mean, in the history of your career so far, do you think that has changed in our culture, being more accepting of humorous advertising?
Yeah, I never thought about that, but you're probably right. Perhaps the internet opened it up I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of sort of memes and little meta references and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely permeated the advertising world. You do graphic design, so you probably see the trends more than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like real estate and retail, but that's not very exciting also. All right, well, let's talk about your avatars. Where did this come from?
Well, it was work for this podcast called Keith and the Girl. I went on a cruise and met a few people on the cruise from this podcast. And when I got home, I ended up scanning in some drawings I did and just splashing a little color into them and put it on their forums like, hey, here's a couple of the people from the show that I wanted to draw. And here they are. I drew them. And lo and behold, I started getting a lot of emails saying, hey, will you draw me? I'll pay you. So I was thinking, sure, I'll do that. And at first I was just setting up a donation system, which was, I'll draw you, just kick a couple of bucks my way. Whatever you think it's worth, I'll do it. And I kept getting more and more busy, just kind of lucked up into this that I had to set some actual concrete prices, because every once in a while you get some cheapskate and freeloader sending you a $5 bill for a drawing. You're like, really? That's all it was worth to you?
Yeah, and that is also tough, because if you don't define what your time is worth as an artist, it's hard for others to gauge that if they're not in that industry or have no connection to it. So, I mean, for them, they were probably thinking, well, it's just a drawing. What the fuck do they know? And for you, it's like, bitch, this is a couple hours of my life. That's really like a couple $100 of my time. I mean, it's tough to gauge that if you're not in the know. So
yeah, you're right.
I mean, at some level, there probably is a cheapskate, but how has that evolved for you? I mean, is that something that you're still offering today, and that you'll take time out of your busy schedule to do for people?
Oh, absolutely. As far as freelance work goes, that's my favorite thing to do. I love drawing people. There's usually a funny slant to them, like I was talking about, and so it's just nice because. Well, like I said, you coming from that graphic design background, it's really, really nice to just deliver a final product, and that's it. There's no back and forth. I'm just not well suited for a lot of back and forth with the art world. After a while, I get really frustrated. Well, after the first change, I'm really bad about that. I just don't want to do changes. I mean, sometimes you understand where they're coming from. Like, oh, well, if it's not reading well, then I understand why you want it to change. But a lot of times you're just like, who are you to tell me what works?
I'm the creative genius.
So shame.
No, I completely understand that, and especially when obviously they're paying you because they want your interpretation, and yet they still think at some point in their head that they know better, that they can somehow dictate it to you. Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. Oh, I mean, what else is coming down the pipe for you, as far as what can we expect as a consuming audience?
Well, more avatars, of course. I've been doing some art prints for calmtheham.com. A lot of pop culture stuff. I did a Breaking Bad one in a super cartoony Hanna-Barbera style. And I just did a Boardwalk Empire print of the character Richard Harrow. Yeah, he's one of my favorite TV characters of all time. So I drew like an early 20s animation version of.
Okay, well, let me talk a little bit about the professional end of things for you as a you're a freelancer, right?
Yeah,
like
I'm
entirely.
a freelancer. Well, I do have a part-time job, as shameful as that is to admit as well. All in all, most of my money comes from freelance, but it comes and goes, mostly goes.
Yeah. What are some of the steps you can take? Because I know there's a lot of people, creative individuals in my audience, and maybe they're wondering how they can network themselves. Do you have any advice in that arena for how do you reach out to prospective clients or potential clients and really sell yourself as a creative artist?
Well, don't be afraid to work for free. It's kind of counterintuitive if you want to get paid to do art, draw for free, but a lot of times you're going to have to prove your chops or kind of test the waters with a client before they're actually going to spend any money on you. Yeah. But if you want to work with somebody, if you want to do something, just do it. And if you get paid for it, great. But chances are you won't. But it's going to lead to something else, and they're going to remember you. So I guess my only real piece of advice would be to work for free. I did a lot of internships and apprenticeships too coming up because I didn't go to art school. And it kind of helped me learn the craft. But most importantly, it just showed that I can work with people.
Yeah, and that's actually really, really important in the creative industry as well. I mean, people will take, and I'm not saying this is the case at all, but I'm just saying as a general rule of thumb, all things being equal, if you have two creative individuals, you're going to work with the one that's a better personality and is willing to go the extra mile.
Yeah, you can't be the creative asshole anymore. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, unless you're independently wealthy, then more power to you. Let me talk to you a little bit about the process of the technical side of your art. I mean, obviously, it all comes from talent and experience, but I do want to ask, are you working more digitally or are you working more traditionally with your comics, with your art?
Yes, I draw. I still hand draw. I still work traditionally, but I use Photoshop to color and make corrections to line art. Sometimes I don't even bother whitening things out anymore. I'll just fix it in Photoshop.
And, I mean, do you ever find a reliance on Photoshop being, I don't know, a little bit, maybe even a little bit shameful as an artist?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I guess you should just look at it as a tool like anything else, like an eraser or whiteout. But Yeah, I feel like I do rely on it. I do blow up sketches and shrink them down and piece stuff together in Photoshop and then print it out and then with a lightbox trace my drawings. And I do that several times. I mean, I want my stuff to look really dashed out, but truth be told, it rarely is.
Yeah. And when you scan it in, other than Photoshop, do you use any other programs or any other techniques or methods that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I use Illustrator too. I used to use it a lot more. I did a lot more graphic design kind of stuff, but nowadays I just use it to lay out text. And I lay it out and then I trace it by hand so it still has that hand-drawn look.
Oh, wow. That's actually really
Yes.
interesting. So you do the text in Illustrator, you print it out, and then you redo it up by hand so that it has that sort of structured, like continuously structured look, but it's still hand-drawn. That's a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, the kerning's going to be correct and it's going to be straight, but it'll still have that hand-drawn look because when I put computer lettering up to my art, it always looks wrong. It always looks weird.
Yeah, that's actually a really good trick. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to.
word balloons, it works really well.
I'm definitely gonna have to be using that in some projects I'm working on. All right, well, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Let's give a little bit of a plug here. So your website is lattaland.com?
Yeah, LATTALAND.com.
And where can people reach out and contact you other than the website?
Oh, well, I'm on Twitter at joshlatta.com, and I'm also on Facebook. You can always look for me there, or Lattaland on Facebook. But you name the social platform, I'm on it, so finding my art won't be too hard.
Oh, yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Sure. Oh, no, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's going to do it for another show. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to hear from you. Visit the website 9sensepodcast.com and send your correspondence to info@9sensepodcast.com. Let me know of any suggestions, critiques, corrections, or general comments you might have. You can visit the Satanet, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, or MySpace page for 9sense and get updated on weekly topics. Listen to the show at RadioFreeSatan.com or download the show Monday nights via my RSS feed found at 9sensepodcast.com. We're also on Last.fm, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube, so look for us there. You can subscribe to 9sense via iTunes by searching 9sense, and don't forget to leave a rating or comment. If you'd like to learn more about the Church of Satan, visit churchofsatan.com. And if you'd like to hear other fine satanic voices, music, or personalities, visit RadioFreeSatan.com, the source for online satanic media. Once again, thank you for joining me, and as always, I'm your host, Adam Campbell, and until next week, hail Satan.